floaties?
Don't be scared, floaties.
Walk the walk when I walk the street. Can't talk the talk if the talk is cheap. Just loosen up, it's a gorgeous thing. I gotta wake 'em up to enjoy the dream. This is hot vibes, living lavish. Ooh, I gotta have it. This is how we make it move like ooh, va va voom, va va voom.
Something funny happened maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. We've been watching that little bumper before each of the weekend messages. And a few weeks back, somebody came up to me after service and said, I didn't know you when you were a kid, Scott. But you know what? When I see that boy, super scrawny, white boy, I bet you look like that. And I said, you're right. I did. I look just like that. Well, today we're wrapping up this series, Challenge Accepted. And as we've been saying, this is a series that is about the one thing that for thousands of years, Jesus' followers were known for. It's something that was like the hallmark or defining feature of the early Christian communities. And it was this like no strings attached. Are you kidding me? Nobody does that kind of compassion and generosity. And that was actually always intended to be the one thing that Jesus' followers were known for. And yet, for a ton of different reasons, Christians have clearly gotten away from that over the years. And so, as we've made our way through this series, we've kind of sought to understand, like, what are some of those underlying beliefs that are foundational for that kind of way of life, because it is so different from the lives that we often see lived around us. And so in week 1, we recognize that Jesus calls his followers to be salt and to be light in this world. And actually the light that people would see from our lives would be the good deeds that we do. And despite the fact that living in South Orange County, I think it's so easy for me, maybe it's so easy for you, to look around and see a lot of people who have a lot more than we do. In the grand scheme of things, we recognize that the overwhelming majority of us are in the top 3% or even the top 1% of the richest people in the world. And so the first time I heard that, I listened to that and I was like, what? And then I thought, that's really good news. That's really good news to be so rich. And so what do we do with that reality? Do we feel guilty about that we have so much? Do we feel bad because, we have more than others? Maybe we feel a little bit better about ourselves, a little self-important or even arrogant. Well, in week 2 of the series, we looked at the words of the Apostle Paul, who challenged followers of Jesus who were rich to actually be rich by doing good deeds. And so generosity that we're called to live out is this great thing. I think as a culture, people tend to look very favorably upon generous people, but we recognize that generosity is more than just some random acts of kindness here and there. Generosity, we said it's premeditated, it's calculated, it's designated. Generosity is making the decision before the dilemma. And Paul said, generous living is actually best done when it is intentional, not impulsive. It's best done with gladness and gratitude, not with guilt. And so as we're seeking to be people who live out the way of Jesus and are truly generous, truly good at being rich, this has been more than another teaching series. It's an opportunity to actually do something about it. It's an opportunity to accept this challenge and live generously so that we can make a significant impact locally and in our communities as well as around the world. And so we're talking about all these different causes that we're participating in and giving to, and we're going to pick up that challenge in our individual and collective commitments to it in just a few minutes. But as we got going, I thought that there would be no better way to start than to tell you about a fight that my wife and I had, okay? So I feel like that would disarm the crowd. This was a fight about 20 years ago. Lindsay and I had just returned from our honeymoon, and it was time to live in the real world. And so in the real world, that meant our fridge was empty and we were hungry, but the grocery store was open, and so that was good news. So we got in the car to pick up a few items. And we've always loved Mexican food. I bet a bunch of you love Mexican food. So for that night, we decided we're going to make tacos, okay? So we went over to Vons. We got a cart. We start moving through the different aisles and picking up the different things that we need to make tacos that night. But as we are adding items to the cart, things like suddenly got a little bit tense. Like, I didn't see it coming on, but it happened, okay? You see, we weren't just young and in love. We were in a very, very tight financial picture. And so my wife, she grabs a packet of taco seasoning, and I was just dumbfounded. Like, we had dated for a while before we got married. I thought she knew who I was, but I asked her, I said, "What are you doing?" To which she said something like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "We can't afford that. We've got to get the store brand." To which she's always been a math whiz. She said, "It's 13 cents more to get this." And I explained that I had this value. I had this vision for our marriage. And the vision was that we would actually continue to live indoors. And she had a vision for eating tacos. Her vision for tacos was that she would eat them and the taco seasoning wouldn't taste like pencil shavings. And so in the middle of that Vons, all of a sudden we're just met with these like different values that we're talking through. And somehow by the grace of God, we make it out of Vons still married, but a little more aware of the fact that we have different ideas about finances and how we would spend or how we would save. But fortunately, like, the good news is that was about 20 years ago, and we have not had an argument since. Sorry, we have not had an argument, just tickle my throat, since this morning. So like, otherwise things have been going well. But you get this. You get what's behind something like that. Different values, different underlying assumptions, and we needed to work through them. And you know that this is not the first time that money has been behind an argument or a disagreement that somebody's had. And chances are, I think most of us could probably think of a time where things got maybe a little bit tense, a little uncomfortable, awkward, or even ugly when money was involved. And so maybe you think about your work life, and this came up with an employer or an employee or somebody that it was a customer you were working with, or maybe a business partner you were trying to do a deal with. Or maybe you had a friendship and everything was going great in that friendship, but then it turned sour because of this conflict over money. Or you can even think of a time where it hit your own family. Like, your family was okay, things were going all right, but then there's this fight, a fight about money or property or an inheritance or an estate, or maybe even a fight about taco seasoning. And it's common that this stirs up emotions in us. There's nothing new about it. And in fact, the passage we're going to look at this morning, we're going to see a couple of brothers who are arguing about money, but we will see Jesus use this conflict as an opportunity to share some incredible insights about money, about the grip that it often has on us, and a healthier, much more long-term view that changes everything for his followers. And so if you got a copy of the scriptures, you can open up to Luke chapter 12, and that's where we're going to be today. And as we often acknowledge, just about everywhere that Jesus went, there were always giant crowds who were surrounding him. People who wanted to see Jesus with their own eyes, hear him with their own ears, right? Get a piece of the action. And the same is true for the setting that we're going to look at. In fact, the chapter begins with Luke telling us this in verse 1. Meanwhile, when a crowd of how many? Of many thousands had gathered so that they were trampling on one another. You get that picture? Jesus begins to speak first to his disciples. And so it's in the middle of this teaching, something that I feel like it's kind of weird. It happens. Verse 13. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." And so we just read, there are thousands of people. They're all like crowded in. They're trampling on one another. And apparently there's a guy who's got enough confidence to kind of raise his hand and be like, hey, Jesus, like, Mr. Jesus, this is great. This is some of the best stuff I've ever heard. But I've got a problem with my brother, and we all understand brothers, right? So Jesus, maybe you can help me with this. And say what you will about this guy and his boldness, but apparently he has recognized that Jesus is somebody who, well, he cares about justice. And so I'm going to bring this matter to Jesus. And so he says, here's the deal. Our parents have passed, and we've got to figure out how to handle their estate. And to this day, we know that this is something that can tear families apart. And you kind of get the impression that the other brother is there with him. Well, Jesus replies, he says, man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you? Meaning, I have no legal authority to speak here. This is not something that I am able to speak with authority to you or to your brother, but he sees something else at play. He sees that in the wake of this family tragedy, the greed has the potential to destroy the relationship between two brothers. And so, as Jesus often does, he uses this as a teachable moment to drive home an important principle. Then he said to him, watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. And Jesus knows that greed is something that can sneak up on all of us without us even noticing it. And he continues, he says, life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Like, that is not how you measure life. There's more to life than what we've got and how much we have. That's not real life. And then he tells them a parable. And a parable is a story that's made up in order to make a point. And he begins the parable, he says this, I want you to picture the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. And so the rich man thought to himself, well, what am I going to do? I have no place to store my crops. And so then he said, well, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. And so in the beginning of this parable, we see that there is a guy who is rich. Like, he has already got a lot, and now he finds himself with even more. And so this is a great rich person problem. He goes, I've got so much stuff, I don't know where to put it all. Like, my garage is full, my closets are all full, I got a public storage unit, but that's full too. And so now I just don't know what to do. And you hear that, and you're like, my heart is broken for this guy, right? I'm feeling it. Well, he's not only rich, apparently he's a problem solver too. And so he comes up with the solution. He says, I know what I'll do. I'll take my barn, like the place that I store all my surplus, and I'll destroy that barn. It's perfectly good, but I'll destroy it so that I have an even bigger space for all of my extra stuff. And he does, apparently, what he's always done. He gets more, and he assumes that the more was meant for him. And we're going to call this assumption the consumption assumption. And this says that if it came to me, well, it must be for me. And so that's what this guy does. He feels really pleased with himself, with the decision, because then he thinks this. He says, I'll say to myself, you've got plenty of grain laid up for many years. So now take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. And it sounds like this guy is set. He's covered. He's ready to retire. He's got enough to last for many years. And at this point, as people are hearing Jesus tell this parable, they might be thinking a number of things about the man in the parable. Some might say that this guy is blessed. He's blessed because it's rich people who've got so much that are blessed by God. Some people might have been thinking that. Other people might have been thinking, maybe this guy is really wise because he has been planning, he's been thinking ahead, he's doing a great job planning for the future. There might be some people in the audience and they're going, this guy's got so much. Maybe he's a tad bit greedy. He's hanging on to so much extra for himself. But nobody hearing this parable is thinking that this guy is really dumb. Nobody's thinking that, which makes the next line so surprising. But God said to him, you fool. And you hear that, you're like, fool? Seriously? For being rich? Is that why he's a fool? No, it's not for that. Some people might even say that it is God who made him rich, and it was God who's the one who made him richer. So then, why is this guy a fool then? It wasn't for having more. It wasn't for getting more, but it was about being confused about what the more was actually for. You see, this guy is a guy who did not know why he had what he did. I mean, he was smart in planning for the future, but he wasn't thinking far enough in advance. And so God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. And then who's going to get what you've prepared for yourself?" And here Jesus highlights this reality that we all face, right? That there will come a time sooner or later for me and for you where our time on earth is going to be done. And our lives are going to be demanded from us. In the original language, this implies that we are going to give something back that wasn't actually ours in the first place. And so, who gets all that you've left behind? Who gets all that I've left behind? And the answer is actually the exact same for all of us. It's somebody else. Like you don't get all that you've left behind. And not necessarily because I chose to be so generous, but because I'm not there anymore, because I'm dead. It's like what Paul writes to Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 6. He says, "After all, we brought nothing with us when we came into the world, and we can't take anything with us when we leave it." So as Jesus wraps up this parable, he gives a summary. He says, "This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God." And this is the outcome, he's saying. Like, this is the story and how it ends whenever someone chooses to take all that they were given and accumulate more and more and more and stockpile and tear down their barns and build bigger barns and fail to use it in a way that would prioritize loving God and loving the people that God created. And so as the parable wraps up, Jesus teaches next about investing, not just in this life, but in the kingdom of heaven. And he instructs his followers to not be people who hoard and accumulate more for themselves, but to be people who manage their resources in such a way that they would do something crazy. They would take what they have, they would sell it so that they can be even more generous to those who are actually in need. That's what Jesus says his followers would do. And I think every time that you and I fall victim to the consumption assumption, believing that since it came to me, it must be for me, every time we do that, well, we lose the opportunity to do good with the resources that we were trusted with. And when that happens, people think, well, that's a shame, because he can't do anything with what he had now. I mean, he only prepared for this life, and that currency is not going to do him any good once he's gone. Because as Jesus taught about this, he taught a number of different principles like this. He said, life is temporary, but you were actually made for eternity. Like, there is so much more to this life than this life, and you were created to live with God forever. And this world is just a shadow of all that is to come. And Jesus also taught that what you do in this life, man, it matters for eternity. Like, one day, Jesus taught, one day we're all going to give an account to God for what we did with the things that he gave us. We'll give an explanation for what we did with the relationships and the conversations and the resources and opportunities that he allowed to pass through our hands. And even more, Jesus taught that generosity in this life leads to reward and abundance in eternity. And it's this idea that there is a greater treasure where we will store up for ourselves that will not be taken away. Like, there's a reward that is awaiting us, and there is so much more freedom now when we fix our eyes on not the temporary, but the eternal. And these are all great ideas, but sometimes it's kind of hard for us to grasp that and to live it out. And so there's this illustration I've heard used a few times before, and maybe you've heard this as well, but it really helps this concept sink in for me. And so I want you to imagine you're living about 160 years ago. You're living in the South at the end of the Civil War. You're originally from the North, but now, temporarily, you're living in the South. And you know that when this war is over, you will go back home to the North. But while you've been in the South, you've accumulated a lot of Confederate money, right? And so you've got a lot of this. And as the war is coming to an end, it is obvious to everyone that the South is going to lose. Nobody is quite sure how quickly this war will wrap up. Maybe it's going to be a matter of weeks. Maybe it drags on a number of months or even another year or so. But soon enough, it's going to be over, and then you're going back home. So here's the question. What do you do now with all this temporary currency? If you're smart, then as soon as you can, you cash in all those Confederate dollars for actual U.S. currency. Why? Because clearly that once the war is over, all that other money is not going to have any value once the war is done. And this is the only money, the U.S. dollar, that is actually going to be worth anything. And so now you just hold on to enough money that's going to get you through the final days of the war, enough to survive in the South until the war is over and you go back home to the North, because you know that once it's done, that money is not going to have any value anymore. So why on earth would I stockpile it, right? And so the bigger question becomes, why on earth, or maybe who on earth, would build bigger barns to store their money that they know has only got temporary value? And Jesus says, well, the answer is a fool. Like a fool does that. And the big idea is really this, that as I view my resources through the lens of eternity, well, money will lose its grip on me, and I will loosen my grip on it. And that's Jesus' point in this parable. Since it's all going to be taken away, why would I miss the opportunity to generously give it away? And see, generous people don't assume it is theirs to consume. Generous people don't think like owners, like all that I have is meant for me and it's mine. They think like managers. I've been trusted with this and I'm going to steward it and use it well. They don't let greed lead to constant discontentment where it's like, oh, I don't have enough and I'm not satisfied. But they choose to leverage their resources for the good of others. And when Jesus came, he invited his followers to be salt and light in this world. And the light that people would see from our lives would be the good deeds that we do. And when it comes down to it, we happen to be some of the richest people who have actually ever lived on this planet. But rather than feeling guilty about that or self-important, we feel grateful. We feel grateful because we've got the opportunity to be rich in good deeds, and we understand that everything that came to me is not for me, but it is a chance to actually let God's love flow through me. See, that's how you become good at being rich. But it's one thing to be simply like a theoretical idea, and it's another thing to actually live it out. And this was meant to be more than a teaching. It's meant to be the way of life for Jesus' followers. And this, what we've been talking about the last 4 weeks, is way more than a series. It's a challenge. It's a challenge that we can choose to accept for our lives. And so all series long, we've talked about this challenge. We've talked about the way that we're diving into it. And it's really designed to take all that we always do around Terra Nova and take that up a few other notches to love well. And we've got a number of things that we've talked about all month long that we say, hey, we're actually doing these things. These are ways we're physically serving to love well. We've talked about this house build that we're doing in Ensenada next month. We've got a family down there. They've got land, but they are living under a tarp. And so we're going to go down there, and we've got a team of Terra Novans that will build this home. We mentioned last weekend, we did a clothing and kitchen drive for Salvation Army, and we had the opportunity to go, hey, let's take what we've got, take the extra that we have, and actually give it away, which funds a program that helps people break the bonds of addiction and hear about the message of Jesus. Christian mentioned a moment ago about Operation Christmas Child. It's this beautiful vision of us saying, hey, what can we do with our extra to give Christmas presents to kids around the world who otherwise would not be getting a Christmas gift and would not be sensing this is what it looks like to receive and hear the story about a love of God. And then we're doing something else. We've got this in the program. We've had it all month long. We've got this Love Your Neighbor challenge where we all individually get to consider who are the people in my life who specifically outside of the Terra Nova community who right now they could use something. they could use some generosity. They could use some kindness. They could use some encouragement. They're going through something, and you know what? Maybe God put you and me in their lives so that we could love them really well. And so we've got the opportunity to go, hey, what if we just kind of dreamed and we pray about that? We come up with a proposal for how you could individually go, I want to do this for them to show the love of God. And so you jot down those ideas and you submit it and we greenlight it and we fund the project and you get to be a part of that. I mean, some really cool things that you go, man, that's really fun. These are the ways that we are serving and the challenge we're stepping into. And then we've got a number of things that we say, hey, we're going to give to this. These are things that we're going to fund. And we've talked about 4 great causes that we are going to be a part of. The first thing that we talked about is these wheelchairs in Indonesia, where we are going to partner with Access Life Ministries, who will pay, we will pay for hundreds of wheelchairs to be manufactured in Indonesia and then delivered to people who have disabilities. People who their whole lives have never had the opportunity to use or to have their own wheelchair. And as a result, they have been treated as second-class citizens. They have been treated as people who have not received the dignity that they deserve. And this is literally going to be something that is life-changing for hundreds of people who receive these wheelchairs. And so we're giving to that. We talked about this house build. We're sending a team down, but we are also going to fund this entire project. We're doing a clean water project in Bali, where again, it's a partnership with Access Life, where we will rebuild and improve an existing water well and the pipes in order to bring clean water to hundreds of families in that village. And then we're doing a playground build in the Philippines. We're partnering with kids around the world where they take used playground equipment from the U.S., they resurface it, they repurpose it, and then install these incredible playgrounds for kids who have never seen anything like it. And it allows them to experience the childhood that many of us, we just take for granted. And it's really awesome stuff. And we actually not only are going to fund this, we're going to send a team to do the install as well. And I don't think we've been overstating it when we say, like, these are really great causes. And we've said the thing that has in common every single one is that every single thing is just straight up good, as in the types of things that Jesus says, this is what I want my followers to be a part of. And we get to work with established partners and ministries who are already there and come alongside them and actually fund these projects. And so that means, as we've been talking about, there's a bit of a price tag to this. And that price tag is, for all of this, it's $60,000. And you go, dang, that's a lot of stuff that we're going to do for $60,000. Like, that's a great deal, but it's also a big chunk of change, right? And so we said, hey, this is not going to be one individual or a group of people. Collectively, together, over the next 3 months, we're going to raise this. And the promise that you have from us is that not a single cent is going to stay with us for administrative fees or shipping or anything like that. It's all going to go out through us. And so all month long, we've talked about this. And then last Sunday, we gave everyone one of these brochures, Love Challenge brochures. There's frequently asked questions on one side. And as we said, our goal, and we believe that healthy generosity is never something that's impulsive, that people are guilted into doing or have to do reactively. But we said we want everybody to have the opportunity to think about this, to pray, to reflect, to have conversations you need to have with loved ones and pre-decide. Because as we look at Paul writing his letter to the Corinthians, this is something that actually is a real healthy part of generosity. And so we said, hey, when we come today, we're going to make these commitments, and we're going to turn in these cards together. And this morning, some of you already were like, hey, where do I put the card? And I was like, hold on, man. Hold on. I just need some pumpkin spice latte, and then we'll get to that a little bit later. We're going to do that in just a minute. And if you go, I still need some time for that, you'll have time to do that as well. But more important than that number goal, that dollar goal, is this participation goal. That we dream that we would see 100% of the people who say, Terra Nova is my church home, dive on into this, whatever that amount might be. You might go, hey, over the next 3 months, I might be able to give $30 to this. You might be able to give $300, or even $3,000 to that. Everybody's in a different spot. But it is just that vision and that image that we're able to do so much more together when we just say, hey, what can we as a community do, and how do we pool our resources together? And see, that's what we are all about. That's what the way of Jesus has always been marked by. It's this outward-focused, others first, no strings attached, are you kidding me? Compassion and generosity. It's what was responsible for the dynamic growth of the early Jesus movement, and it was the thing that Jesus' followers were always meant to be known for. And so now it comes to us. Now it's our chance. It's our turn to say that's what we are going to be known for too. And see, we live in a culture where it is so common to look inward and focus on our needs, and we say, you know what? We're going to choose to look out. We live in a society that's so obsessed with consumption, but we're going to choose to contribute. And in a moment where Christians are so often known for who and what they stand against, we're going to be known for the way that we love like Jesus. That's the challenge that he offers to us, and we've got the chance to say, well, we're in, and we are going to accept that challenge. And so this is how this is going to work. If you didn't already bring your commitment card, I think on every single chair, we've got those that are laid out, and there should be one there. And these cards, this is not like a legal binding document or anything like that, you know that. But this is a way for us to say, hey, I'm in. Like, I want to do this. I want to be a part of this. And so we're going to use one per household. And again, in a minute, if you haven't already had the chance to do so, we'll give you a few minutes to do that. You'll see that on the blue side that there's an opportunity to write what you're committing to give to. And as we said, this isn't like, hey, this is all happening today, so if you're going to give, it's got to be now. We're going to do this over the next 3 months, which gives us the chance to probably be a little bit more generous than we would be able to be if we were doing it all at one time. And you can give via a number of different methods. If you want to give using a check, and you know what a check is, then you can write challenge accepted in the memo line. We've got the Terra Nova app set up and our website set up. You can give on there as well. The website, it's ourterranova.com/give. There's a drop-down menu that says challenge accepted. And one of the ways that might actually be most convenient, and this is helpful for me when I go, hey, I want to do this, but I often forget about things, is actually to set up automated giving. And so if that's something you want to do, then on the back side of here, there's a couple different ways you can do that and a step-by-step instruction for how to do that. But one last note, and I recognize this. You might be here today and you're like, I am not ready for this. As in, like, I had no idea this was going on. Now, you've been traveling the last few weeks, and you're like, I saw an email or something on Instagram, but, like, I didn't know that this is what we were doing. Or you're going, you know what? I needed to have a conversation, and we didn't have that conversation, and I'm just not ready for it right now. Maybe you're like, I don't know. I've been here the last few weeks, but I just missed it, I guess. I don't know the reason. Or you're here, and you're like, I'm brand new. Like, I've never been here before. I had no idea this was going on. I didn't know what I was walking into. But you get the opportunity to see, here's what we are all about. And so if that's where you're at, I want to invite you to maybe take this card home, consider, okay, are there any conversations I need to have? Let me make that happen today or tomorrow. Pray over this. Reflect on it. Also, in your program, there should be one of these postage prepaid envelopes. And in the next, let's say like 3 days or so, fill this out, throw this in, because our hope is actually to announce what our collective commitment is next Sunday. And man, I can't tell you enough how excited I am that our community is a part of something like this. To be part of a church that says, this is what we want to be known for, and so this is what we will commit to. But to be clear, we want to remind ourselves that this type of goodness and love and compassion and generosity does not originate with us. It is so much bigger, and it is so much better than that. It comes from being on the other side of a God who is marked by all of those things, who can't help but be all of those qualities and live out that type of love. And so as his followers who take that seriously and wanting to reflect him to the world, we look at this love that has changed everything for us, and we say, if that is how God would love us, if that is how he would love people, if that's how he will operate, so will we. We are in. And so right now, in response, if you want to fill out that card right now, you're more than welcome to. We have a few minutes to do that. You might want to just reflect and pray and thank God for how generous he's been and respond in gratitude, or you might even want to stand and sing as we commit to this love challenge together. And after a moment, I'll be back up here.
God of creation, there at the start, before the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark, and blessed out the wonder of life. You speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. The vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. I can see your heart, everything you've made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. If creation sings your praises, so will I. Syllable empty or void. Once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature, so will I. I can see your heart, everything you say. Repainted sky, a canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I. So will I. So will I. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the summer moon of praises still fall shy, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. Of salvation, you chase down my heart through all of my failures and pride. On a hill you created, the light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Well, you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've done. Every part designed, the work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I. I can see your heart a billion different ways. Oh, every one of them is a child you died to save. You gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
Father God, our Creator, our King, we thank you that you would be the one who enters into this world, enters into our mess, into the things that we've created, and you would be the one who offers a solution to that problem. We thank you that you've shown us this love that has never before been seen. You've shown us compassion and kindness and grace. You've called us your own. You've extended love to us when we have wanted nothing to do with that. And so we thank you for how good you've been to us. And we also say that we want to be a part of making sure that love does not stop with us, but flows through us. God, we want to reflect you as well as we possibly can. We want to follow your way, Jesus, and make your love famous. And so together, collectively, we just say that we are in, that we know that this is a challenge to follow you and live sacrificially and focus on the needs of others. And yet it is such a reward and it's such a privilege, and we choose to accept that. So thank you so much for the opportunity to do good with what you've blessed us with. And that is a challenge we accept. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.